This is my buddy Rowlfy, and this is Rowlfy's roadmap to success. So we started off the session by going over a lot of fundamentals. Now the Guardians here had worked with a dominance trainer who had recommended that they use a prong collar. Rowlfy's chief issue that I came in to work with is his dog reactivity. A prong collar is a punishment-based tool. They're illegal in a lot of countries. I don't like using them because it introduces cortisol in the dog's blood. And when you're using a punishment-based training method, anything that's around the dog or that the dog is looking at when the pain is administered is where it thinks it came from. So if you have a dog that's reactive and you're in a busy place like Santa Monica where there's a lot of dogs, I see a dog and when they get reactive, they're hysterical. They're not thinking properly. So I see a dog and I lurch at it and it bites me in the neck. I think that dog bit me in the neck. That's going to amplify my behaviors. Now, also when we have dogs that are reactive, we usually like to use a harness. There is no collar or harness that stops a dog from pulling on a leash, just like there's no coat that makes you a doctor. It's training. You have to practice and work at these things. So for dogs, because dogs will bite each other on the neck during actual fighting, and the constriction can help them feel a little bit more confronted, we usually like to use a harness. I recommend that we get an Ezy Dog Harness, the letters Ezy Dog Harness. It's one that has kind of a breastplate here, and then it's got two cables, or well, not cables, straps that go around the dog's neck and then around the dog's midsection, so it's harder for them to wiggle out of it. It gives you a little bit of more control, and it removes that tension off of their mouth. Rowlfy is nibbling the bed a little bit that the camera's on. Okay, so now Rowlfy's focusing the camera. Okay, so I'd like the Guardians to throw away that prong collar. And if you're using a prong collar, I promise you there's going to be a lot of other things that are going to come as a result of that. It can poke through the skin and damage the trachea. It increases cortisol in the dog's blood, so now it's a physical manifestation. There's a lot of free training videos that you can get on YouTube or on our website that'll show you how to teach a dog to walk with a loose leash, if that's usually why people are using it. But we really don't like using shock collars or prong collars for those reasons. Now, Rowlfy also has a bit of a habit of he nibbles. And he does this for two capacities, when he's excited or when he wants to ask for attention. So I'm going to talk about both these things and then we'll get to the exercise, because if it's because he's bored, getting him some exercise might help, and I'll go through some options in a little bit. But if he's overstimulated, a lot of times dogs lose control of what they're doing and they start nibbling with their hands. So anytime he gets a level 5 energy out of a range of 10, stop engaging with him. What I did was I told him to sit, and I said yes is the marker word, and then I gave him a treat, and I was a little bit slow on the delivery of the treat. Then I asked him to lay down. Yes, and then I was kind of slow on the delivery of the treat. About 2-3 seconds. And so after a while, sit. Yes. I'm getting him kind of slow his roll down a little bit by gradually asking, and I'm asking him to do things for me to get him a treat. Now, if you make it too long of an interval, he's going to go back to nibbling you. So we want to make sure that we're using, kind of the Goldilocks amount of delay. Keep in mind, if you're getting him too worked up, a lot of times when we see a dog's mouth, kind of like Rowlfy's is, like it was, when it's open like that, we see that as a smile. And so we think he's happy, and so we get him more worked up, but we have difficulty listening to ourselves or practicing and focusing on things when we're overexcited. So if it gets above level 5 energy, stop engaging with him. Now, I usually go over this teaching dogs manners. So most dogs jump up, paw at us, bark at us to demand attention. Kind of like a child says to their mom, I don't want this meatloaf, go make me some chicken nuggets. And most parents will give their child a second chance, or a do-over as I like to call it, and say, would you like to ask for that again? Mommy, can I please have some chicken nuggets? And if the kid's little, it's a small ask. Usually mom will go do it to tell the child that saying it inappropriately or rudely does not get your way, but doing it politely does. Now we're going to do a spin of this because of his nibbles. So normally that's kind of one of the ways he asks for attention. So a lot of times what we do when a dog does something is we give him a replacement behavior. So I can move this around, you see he's looking for it, and if I know he's going to grab it, I can say snag. Now for me, snag means to grab something. So the cue should come before the dog does the action. So if he's nibbling on you, and you want to get him to snag, the way that I usually would do it is, right now he's got it. So if you see that the rope is on the floor and he's about to grab the rope or any toy, I would, right before he grabs it, say snag, or whatever the word is you want to grab, or whatever the word is you want to use. The cue, which is, we used to call the command word, the cue should come before the dog does the action that you want them to do. And if you repeat the word multiple times, you're going to help your dog practice not listening to you and reduce the value of the cue and make them not listen to it as much. There you go. Now, when he does snag it, you're going to say your marker word of yes, which we introduce, and then we're going to go ahead and pet him. Or, if he wants to, play tug of war with him. There we go. Yes. So playing tug of war is a great way to exercise your dog. And instead of nibbling on me, what he's saying when he nibbles is, I want your attention. Well, let him get some attention doing a replacement behavior or a different activity instead of nibbling on us. This is a great way to burn energy. Do you agree, Rowlfy? Yes, I do. And so the idea is we're helping him burn some energy without nibbling on us. He's not practicing the unwanted behavior. And then when his energy gets too intense with this, let's say he's getting really riled up, I can go, yes. Sit. Sit. Yes, I think you're moving off camera. Now as we've got his energy to come down, now I can say, snag! Well, he doesn't have snag yet, so that's why we would just wait for him to do it on his own. Snag! There you go. And maybe you have a different word for snag versus tug of war. We call this tug, 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 or WWE, or whatever it is. And motion is going to get his attention. And I can throw it, snag! He just picked it up, and say yes and pet him on his bottom.
Yes.
And so the idea is
snag.
We want to say the word, the cue, before he does it. So I'm kind of mixing a whole bunch of stuff up. So let me go back to the nibble. So he comes up and nibbles on you. What I'd like you to do is to say snag and point at one of the toys on the floor. This means that to do this, you've got to have done that quite a bit. So you want to be able to point and say snag, and he does snag something before you start using this cue of snag. So just every time that he's about to grab something on the floor, say snag right before he gets it, and then say yes and pet him.
Yes.
Perfect. Doesn't matter what the toy is, any toy. So snag means get whatever I'm pointing at. And then I say yes to let him know that's what I wanted. And now he's got the thing and he runs around the house. I'd recommend getting Bark Box. You can get it with or without treats, but get the Bark Box. He'll get 3 new toys each month that will have squeakers in them. And when you get those, give them to him one at a time. That's a great way to introduce snag, because a new toy gets that fresh toy smell. So you get one and kind of bounce around a little bit and throw it and drop it on the floor and say snag right before he licks it up. He's going to want to play with that toy because it's new. You might get 5 or 10 reps out of it. And after he grabs it, each time you say yes, then you pet him. And after a while, he'll start doing that more and more often. And then when he nibbles on you, you say snag. Now, if he goes and snags it, then you can either play fetch or tug of war or whatever, but you've redirected. If he just gets it, goes around the house squeaking it, that's great. He's not nibbling on you. Now, let's say you say snag and he doesn't snag it, he keeps on nibbling on you. Well, then I'll recommend the guardians do a negative punishment. A negative punishment means we're going to remove something that the dog likes. So right now, nibbling probably gets the guardian to say, stop that, Rowlfy. Well, all attention is validating and rewarding to dogs. So from Rowlfy's perspective, I nibble on you, I get a lot of excitement from you. It's a great game. I love this game. But humans don't like this game so much. So next time that first time he nibbles on you, say snag. If he doesn't snag, then you're going to, he does it a second time. The instant you feel the skin, the teeth on your skin, get up and leave and close the door behind you. Now this can create frustration. But we don't want him to practice nibbling because he nibbles the wrong person. They might think he's actually biting him and hit him, and that might turn into a real fight. Now, we also want to look at maintenance for this. Maintenance is providing the dog with what it needs before so he doesn't get in trouble. So, or offer unwanted behaviors is a better way to put it. So basically, if he's nibbling on me, I would ask myself, how long has it been since he's been exercised, or how excited is he? If it's been longer than an hour since he's been exercised when he nibbles, then just play some fetch. Say fetch, throw the ball down the hallway. When he brings it back to you, have a treat. Hold it up to his nose like I did with the rope. As soon as he drops it, say yes and put the treat in his mouth. And then at that point, he's dropped the ball. Then you can step on the ball, tell him to sit, he sits, pull out a treat and hold the treat here. So you're not giving him the treat yet, you're keeping him focused on here. Then you grab the ball, and then you say, give him the treat, say yes, and then throw the ball. When I play fetch, I usually like to ask the dog to sit each time before I throw the ball. So that kind of creates a little bit of a calming energy. Also, he's practicing listening to you. It's just a nice way of reinforcing the sit and creating a brighter cue. Or you may play tug of war. Or we might play go dog skiing, or like I said, fetch, or go for a sniff walk. Sniffing on walks, for instance, substantially more energy than not lying to sniff. Also, for a reactive dog like him, I want him sniffing. I don't want him looking for the dog to bark at. So we also went over cookie in the corner, which we use find it as the cue. Basically, that's the throwing the treats down. I'd like you to do that on walks when there's no dogs around. And in the video above, we'll go over how we can use that to redirect him. But if every once in a while you just say, find it, and make sure when you find it, he's looking at you and the direction you're throwing it. Don't throw it behind him because he won't see it. So if Rowlfy's here, I say, find it, and I throw it in front of him, he goes and tries to look for the treat in the grass. So now it's a nice way that you can redirect him. And as we talked about in the video above, if there's a dog coming and you see the dog turns around the corner and Rowlfy hasn't seen it, you say, hey, Rowlfy, find it, find it, find it. And we can turn Rowlfy and move him away from the other dog before he even sees it. Now cooking in the corner is a great introduction to scent games. So we're throwing 1 treat, 2 treats, 3 treats, work up to 5 or 6 treats. And we're saying the marker word each time he looks at the treat. That's unusual. Normally we say the marker word for the action, not for getting the treat. But in this case, getting the treat is the action. And after he gets to all the treats and we say here, he comes back to us, we practice and develop a stronger recall. Say yes right before he gets to you, then put in the treat, then throw the next number of treats. Eventually, you want to, when Rowlfy's in the other room, hide the treats along the wall or wherever it is, and then you would do a motion, say, find it, and sweep your hand in that direction. He'll go sniff the floor looking for it, and now he's going to drain a lot of energy. Remember, the nose controls a lot of the brain, and it drains a lot of energy, and it's calming and relaxing for the dog. Rowlfy's taking a little bit of a nap. Dogs sleep throughout the day periodically, so this is why exercise and mental stimulation is best every couple of hours as opposed to one long walk all at once. So I recommend the Guardians get a snuffle mat. Get the one that has the tassels and the band around it. Message me if you can't find it and I can share the link with you. Get an Omega Tricky Treat Ball, and get the large so you can put food in there. Get the wobble, I don't know what it's called, but it looks like a Kong. I think you can go to dogonproblems.com/supplies, and I think that's our supplies place link, and it'll have a link to that one there. But you can put his kibble in these things, so now he's working for his food. This makes it's like akin to him getting some exercise. Now also teaching him some tricks. Great way to burn energy. For dog training, we want to keep dog training exercises to 2 to 4 minutes, 5 minutes maximum, and always end on a good one. That's the brightest memory he's going to have. If you don't end on a good one, he's not going to want to do it the next time. So maybe teach him to spin. Teach him, which is a good exercise to do. So he jumps up on people when they come through the door. So teaching him to spin, just hold a treat in his nose, lure him around the circle. When he completes the circle, make sure it's at nose level. Say yes and give him the treat. Once you can lure him easily with the treat in your hand, then have the treat in this hand, but make this hand look like you have a treat. Fake lure him, yes, and then treat from the other hand. And after a while, you're luring without the treat, and then you can kind of go higher and higher. And then, you can eventually, when you come in, you just go hurricane. And when I can get him to do the circle easily, that's when I would say hurricane. Hurricane, yes, and then give him that treat. And so now when you come in, each time you come in, have about 5 or 7 treats in your pocket or a little treat pouch. And Rowlfy comes in, you say hurricane, he does the circle, yes. Down, yes. Guess which hand, which is just having a treat in one hand, put it on either side of his nose. If he touches the right hand, you say yes and flip it over, he gets the treat. If he touches a hand without a treat, you just flip it over without saying yes. Put your hands behind your back, don't switch hands, and do it again. So what we want to do is do replacements. So when you come through the door, we're going to play like 5 or 7 games every time people come in the door. None of them involves jumping up on us. So now when he's looking for things, now sometimes you might just do circle only, or just guess which hand, or hand targeting only. So that's what he kind of expects to do, but you can also do a variety of them. Now we also went over how to use marker words. The marker word is yes. Make sure that you have loaded the word by the time you've seen this. If you haven't, again, 6 times for about 20 treats for the clicker, 6 times for about 20 treats for the word yes, and walk around your house doing it. And don't do them back to back. Wait about 15 minutes at least between between loading exercises. And you want to keep doing those until when you click or say yes, he's like, yeah, I really like this. Now we also want to load the positive interrupters. So remember, all attention is validated. So if you're doing something inappropriate, when he looks at you, throw the hand target out, or say boop. Then he runs over and touches his nose with your hand. Then give him something else to do, a lick mat, a treat dispensing toy, take him for a walk, do some training. Otherwise, he's going to go back to the thing you want. But this way, if we say, no, stop doing that, Rowlfy, it's like going to reward him for doing it. It's going to cause him to do it more often. So load the, whatever the word is, if you want to use beep, 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 or puppy, 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 just always make sure you say it 3 times in a high-pitched voice, or use the kissing sound. Treat, take a couple steps, treat, and a long smooch like that, not like, that's not the right one to use. Okay, so let me see. But feeding out a snuffle mat and coming up with a routine so that we are getting his exercise and mental stimulation proactively. When we have kids, we are proactive about getting them naps. When it comes to dogs, we are reactive for getting them exercise. So you know a guest is coming over. Maybe we're going to exercise him, play fetch for 10 minutes, and then give him 10 minutes of rest. Then the guest comes over. And so after a while, the dog doesn't have that top level of energy. Rowlfy, Rowlfy, puppy, 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 Rowlfy. Fine, Rowlfy, Rowlfy. So I'm doing a classic example of what you don't want to do, which is repeating the word. So let me see if I can use this. There you go. Well, his dad is standing near the door, which is really hard for him to not resist because that's an exciting area. We just had a package delivered. And so that might be something we're teaching him to go to his dog bed. So if you want, why don't you here, take these. Yes. James, take these. Show me you have them. Walk over to the dog bed. And then I like to have a fun name for my dog bed. I have 2 dog beds in my house. One is called Jamaica. One is called Venice. So what we call it, England. So say England and throw it on the dog bed.
England.
And when he steps on it, say yes.
Yes.
So this can be a cue. So eventually you can teach him to go to the dog bed. Now for this exercise, I have a whole chapter in my book on how to do this, where basically you go over and maybe at first we do what we're doing. Now make sure he sees you throw it. And that's what the example of that busyness of the dog bed. He couldn't see that treat. So you might put just a white towel down so he sees it. So what we want to do is use, say England, throw the treat on there, and then say yes when he steps on it. Try to throw it a little bit further in so he has to at least step on it at least once. So
England.
Yes?
Yes.
Perfect. And so now eventually England means go to the dog bed. So you want to keep on doing it until you say England, he goes to the dog bed. The next stage what I would do is go England as I throw it on the, so now he's already going to the dog bed, but we're saying England at the same time we hear a very light knock. And eventually we'll work up to, and the knock means go to the dog bed. But you never do this when somebody's at the door. So after a while, if he hears, he goes over to the dog bed and sits down because that means he's going to get a treat. Now, right at first we throw the treat and say England, but eventually we say England, and he goes over there, then he goes England, point at it, he goes and sits down, then you say yes and give him the treat. So now we're saying if you go to England, I will give you the treat, or whatever the word is you want to use if you don't want to use England. But now we're going to condition him when there's a sound of the door, the behavior that my parents are asking for me is to go to the dog bed across the room and stay there. And if you go walking from there to the dog bed, to the actual door, causes him to get up, England, he goes to England, yes, give him a treat. Take one step to the door, come back to him, say yes, give him a treat. Do that about 3 times. Then say England, or have him, if he's still there, take 2 steps to the door. Then go back and say yes to give him that treat. And repeat that 3 to 5 times. And then 3 steps to the door. And you're doing all of these things with nobody at the door. Nice. That was a good snag. You didn't hold on to it, but it was good. And so after a while, you'll be able to practice saying England, he goes to the dog bed, you walk all the way to the door, you jiggle the handle and walk all the way back and give him a treat. We open the door an inch, we unlatch the door, we take the security thing off. Yes. And so eventually we've conditioned and we've taught him what we want him to do. Most of the time when dogs misbehave, we have not taught them what we want them to do, yes, in that activity. And then the dog kind of does other things. We get mad at them for not doing what we haven't taught them. Well, that's really our fault, not his fault. So try to reverse engineer activities and set it up so you're doing the activity when you don't need to. There's a meme online in the dog training world. It says, an emergency is not the time to practice, and practice is not an emergency. So if we practice when we don't need to, we teach the dog how to behave. Then when the actual activity comes, we've worked our way gradually from a practice scenario to a dress rehearsal, gradually work our way up to the real world situation. And then eventually we say, somebody knocks on the door, we say England, he goes, sits down, you go open the door, let the people come in, he's further away, he's not so excited. And then when you release him, he comes up and maybe does the hurricane cue or whatever it is. Now I have links to videos for hand targeting, or I have videos for them and they're online. So if you want to do hand targeting or the hurricane or any of these things, let me know and I can share videos with you if I don't have them linked up in the write-up. All right, well, this is my buddy Rowlfy. Rowlfy! Normally I like to let sleeping dogs lay, but we want to have you get up for the end of this video. Can you see him in the video?
His head.
Rowlfy, come here. Rowlfy! Come here, buddy. There we go. This is my buddy Rowlfy, and this is Rowlfy's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.